Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8-5, and 8-5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go. I copied a while ago, 1 Charlie transmission that my thing used, November, go, 1 Charlie, and 8-5, this is 7 November, Charlie. 8-5 right now. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, reference to your last, you're granted 158 extra 5 stars, 1200 between teams and local. Also request your unit take extra records to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for Borne to the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that?
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf. My unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Hey, I never took a dip. I forgot to take a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8-5, and 8-5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go.
All right, what's up? What's up? We're watching this press conference. It started at 9. Had to take the kids to daycare and do all that jazz. But AFET, what's up? Good morning. Thank you for being a member. Simple Trading. What we're going to do is watch the press conference, which is right here. Make sure this is all set up. I totally should have done this before. But hey, here it is. Let's get the rolling. We can skip all of this.
Inform veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors nationwide about the benefits and care available to them.
Let's see what they got to say.
And as a result of your reporting, we have more veterans than ever before receiving care and benefits.
LG,
that's a
what's
win-win
up?
for everyone. I'd also like to show my gratitude to my team of public affairs officers across the VA enterprise. These dedicated professionals answer hundreds of media requests daily with the goal of being transparent, timely, and truthful each and every time. So to the PAOs at the facilities, regional offices, VISNs, field offices, administrations, and here at central office, you have done a superb job of helping us share the VA story.
I would like the VA to be transparent to veterans, not just news media outlets, but that's neither here or there, okay?
You should be proud of the work that you've done these past 4 years. You helped us rebuild trust and confidence in our VA.
Oh, Tom Bombadil, forgot you.
To the
Good
women
morning.
and men behind the camera.
Good morning.
And in the studio for every press conference, our unsung heroes. We could not have accomplished what the secretary demanded of me without your expertise, initiative, dedication, and outside-the-box thinking. These press conferences allowed us to speak directly to our stakeholders, veterans, families, caregivers, survivors, members of Congress, and the American taxpayers. You made that happen, and I hope you know how integral you are to our VA team.
Figured if it's going to say
and our
anything,
mission
might as well
here
just put that in our
serving
search bar.
veterans. Thank you. And with that, I now turn the floor over to the Honorable Secretary Dennis McDonough for my final time to begin today's
Good morning.
press conference.
Good morning.
Over to you, sir.
All right. McDonough. Yes.
Terrence, thank you very
goes
much
one,
for
in
the,
comes another.
Very generous introduction. I second your shout out to our awesome team, our PAs.
How does
in
it
the
look
field.
if I
was thrilled
full
to know
screen it?
a bunch
Let me
of,
see.
I learned last week when I was in the field that a bunch were coming to town for this.
Oh, that's better.
For the great production team and the great work that you guys do, and obviously to our partners in the press corps. So thank you very much. I just confided to the team in the morning call that I'm normally quite nervous for these. I'm doubly nervous because my wife told me she was going to watch. So I definitely can't screw up today.
I will say this, dude. If you look at Secretary McDonough, in 2021, I think is whenever he came. Homie's aged a solid 10 years, dude. It's a definitely stressful position.
Good morning. During our discussions the last 2 months, in November and in December, I underscored that we intended to conduct a world-class transition, and we're doing that. We proactively stood up a transition team this past summer, and since the day of the election, we've been ready with detailed briefings and memos on every part of VA to help the incoming team. They've received those documents the day the transition officially began. And as of last night, we've hosted or scheduled 22 briefings with members of the incoming administration.
That'd be a good
Closed
one.
out 74 requests for information. We're actively working an additional 80 requests for information. We're responding to every question quickly and transparently. And we're sharing everything we know with the transition team. Detailed information about VA operations, risks, and opportunities, including on VA's budget, on West LA, on EHRM, on staffing, on physical infrastructure, and more.
I'm pretty sure the West LA is the court case that's forcing the VA to house veterans, I think. I'll have to double check that. I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about.
Also, they have the tools they need to hit the ground running on day one and to make sure they have what they need to deliver for veterans. One risk we've been certain to brief is the unaddressed budget shortfall that VA faces. We want the incoming team to understand the implications of that shortfall so that they will be prepared for the budget debate before the current CR expires in March. We'll keep working this transition very hard. In a few minutes, I'll turn things over to VA's awesome Deputy Secretary, Tanya Bradsher. And that's Tanya, not Tanya. Nobody's fought harder for her sisters and brothers in arms than Tanya. They have no greater advocate. Just about 4 years ago, it was Tanya, an Army Public Affairs officer and combat veteran, who pushed me to hold monthly press conferences. She knew that we had to be more transparent with the press if we were going to rebuild trust with our external partners, VSOs, capital.
I will say something about that. I do like that. However, I would prefer transparency to veterans first. Everyone else is secondary. VSOs, secondary. The press, the Washington Post, right? The Federal News Network, all those are secondary. You got to be transparent to veterans first, and the VA's not. They're simply not.
Hill and the vets we serve. So, as usual, Tanya was right. VA kept its promise to vets over this period, and we could not do so without you, the journalists who tell veterans stories, whom they trust to provide them reliable information, and who hold us accountable to veterans. And you've done just
That's
that.
funny.
You've held us accountable on PACT Act, on suicide prevention, on
Can I
veteran
take off?
homelessness, and on so much more. All of VA's accomplishments for vets, each and every one of them, is because of our VA teammates. And over the past 4 years, those teammates have delivered more care and more benefits to more vets than ever. I'm thinking of VA teammates like Jaime Salome, first generation American, Marine Corps Iraq combat vet. Jaime was a member of the Honor Guard at Fort Bliss National Cemetery when he was on active duty. He remembers being constantly amazed by the way our NCA staff treats vets, families, funeral home staff, and volunteers. So when he got out of the Marines in 2006, he knew exactly where he wanted to work. Jaime went back to school on the post 9/11 GI Bill and started a VA work study program back at Fort Bliss. He's been with VA ever since. Today, Jaime is the assistant director of the Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, and he takes immense pride in providing his fellow vets an eternal resting place befitting their service to our country. I'm also thinking of teammates like Jennifer Wallace, the military sexual trauma, or MST coordinator at the Des Moines Regional Office. Jennifer built a monthly meeting with survivors in Des Moines, listening to their stories, building community, and fighting for their
Thanks,
claims.
Billy. Appreciate that.
Jennifer remembers one vet in particular, a post 9/11 Army vet who survived MST and intimate partner violence. She has 3 kids, was 6 months behind on her mortgage. Jennifer fought like hell for that veteran until she received the benefits she'd earned and so richly deserves. Today, those retroactive benefits have allowed her to catch up on her mortgage payments, and her monthly benefits are allowing her to focus squarely on her own healing. Jennifer says helping veterans is the hardest, most fulfilling work she's ever done. It impacts you immediately, she said. You see this person who sacrificed so much for all of us. I love being there for them. What a soldier, what a vet. And I'm thinking of VA teammates like Dr. Lisa Kearney. Over 2 decades of service at VA, Lisa's been completely devoted to preventing veteran suicide, providing vets the very best mental health care in the world.
Veteran suicide is
A
down.
few years ago, when
by the
she
way.
was the new chief of psychology at the San Antonio VA, Lisa was having supper with her parents. Now, anyone who knows Lisa knows she brings joy to every room, every meeting, every interaction. But at supper with her parents, she was distressed, even overwhelmed. The demand for mental health services from young Iraq and Afghan vets was high,
I got you, Billy.
growing every day. She felt like she was fighting an impossible uphill battle. As she told this story, her dad, a Vietnam vet,
Yep. Thanks.
whose parents
Appreciate
both
that.
served in World War II, abruptly stood up and walked away from the dinner table. When he came back, he hung his dog tags around Lisa's neck.
Hey, well, you're still
told
here
her,
making
honey,
this comment.
When times
That's
get
good to
tough,
see.
you keep fighting and you touch these
Thank you
dog
for sharing
tags.
that.
You remember who and what we're fighting for. Well, Lisa's still fighting. She's not taking off those dog tags. They hang along her VA badge right next to her heart. Working with teammates like Tanya, career employees like Jaime, Jennifer, and Lisa, and all of you across this awesome enterprise has been the blessing of my professional life. I've seen your many kindnesses to vets and their families. And I know that you will never stop serving vets, in so many cases, your fellow vets, every bit as well as they have served all of us. I'm grateful for your work, and I'm proud to have been a member of your team. Tanya, the floor is yours.
All right, Tanya. Or
Thank you,
more
sir.
PAOs. Yay.
I want to echo my thanks to everyone who puts together this press conference. It is a lot of work. And I am just so incredibly proud as a public affairs officer to be with so many of my DIMPOS trained killers across the nation and to have met so many public affairs of folks that are supporting our VA mission across the United States. And Terrence, I just want to also say thank you for everything you've done. I'm just so incredibly thankful. I will do my best to get through today. I hope everyone had a peaceful holiday season. It is good to join you this morning. Now, the reason I get to stand on this podium as the most senior woman in VA's history is because of Secretary McDonough's advocacy. Going back all the way to our days in the National Security Council when I was still on active duty. I am forever grateful for that. As a veteran, I am forever grateful for the leadership and vision that you brought to VA. From day one, you pushed us to be transparent, to stay on offense, to reach veterans where they are, and to respect and build trust with our partners in the veteran service organizations, on Capitol Hill, in the press, and with all of our stakeholders. You led us to our 4 record-breaking years in a row of getting veterans the benefits and services that they have earned and so rightfully deserved. And you did all of that for veterans to keep that promise that our country makes when they sign up and serve in the military. Now, you always, and rightly, give all the credit to our great VA employees. But everybody knows that the unyielding passion and drive our employees have demonstrated these last 4 years, the scope and scale of their accomplishments, well, you need vision and you need unity of effort. And in an organization of this size, getting to that doesn't happen without some extraordinary
You need to do a higher level
leadership.
review.
Leadership that inspires, and extraordinary teammates that the opportunity to drive and to succeed. That's your kind of leadership. And because of that, VA is on track to keep doing better for veterans, to keep being better for veterans, keep building trust with veterans, and fighting like hell for them. All of which to say, VA has never had a stronger, more committed, more compassionate leader than you. And veterans have never had a more devoted advocate than you. And on behalf of all of my sisters and brothers in arms and all VA employees, thank you, sir. Now, I came to VA to work for my old boss, Dennis McDonough.
Good morning. What's up?
What kept me here were the career civil servants, many of whom I served during my time in the Army. America's greatest, most devoted federal workforce, giving so much of yourselves
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for being a member.
to serve veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors. And when I depart here shortly, what I will miss the most is all of you. I'm thinking about the folks at our beautiful.
I want to answer this one because it's a hot topic question. To be honest with you, dude, if SMCs aren't in play, don't worry about it. I have other conditions that were denied pre-PACT Act. I'm not going to go for them. Right? Why have a CMP exam? You've already made it. Now, if SMCs are a thing, then sure, go for it. Okay, sorry.
Beautiful national cemeteries, regional offices, and healthcare facilities across the country. I'm thinking about our courageous VA police, our
Solid.
veterans canteen service employees serving veterans,
Yeah, no worries.
and our colleagues in our stores, cafes, and coffee shops. I'm thinking of our custodial workers who keep all facilities clean and safe for veterans and for all of us. Each of you is so important to serving veterans. Serving alongside you has been the rarest of privileges. I first came to VA in 2013 when I retired from the Army for my care and benefits. And I can tell you from personal experience that today we're a new VA. It's thanks to our great employees and their hard expert work for veterans that VA is delivering more care, more benefits to more veterans than at any other time in history. And it's not just more care you're delivering, it's better, world-class care. Veterans' health outcomes are better when you're caring for them. It's not just more benefits, it's faster, more accessible benefits. you're delivering by meeting veterans where they are rather than expecting them to come to VA. And it's not just more veterans, it's more veterans trusting VA at record rates that are remaining at an all-time high. Now, looking ahead, what will always be most important is continuing to do what you all have done for the past 4 years. Fulfill President Lincoln's promise to care for those who have served in our nation's military and for their families, caregivers, and survivors. I know that is what you will keep doing in the years ahead. So to my fellow veterans, come to VA for your benefits and care. If you're not already, let us build a relationship with you and your family. If you are, keep coming and let VA continue to build its relationship with you. From the GI Bill to home loans, to VA to life, to Veterans Legacy Memorial, VA has services that meet every stage of your life after the military.
Hey, that's a good point. Keep in mind, these are public affairs officers, they're PAOs. Their sole job is to push what's called truthful information, but it's as they deem fit. So, yeah.
I promise you this, as a veteran, that's exactly what I'm going to continue to do. And I promise this as well, for the rest of my time as Deputy Secretary and for the rest of my life. I will keep advocating for my fellow veterans, for VA, and for all of my VA teammates. Working with you is a gift in which I am deeply grateful. You've made me a better person. God bless you all, and thank you.
Insomnia can be rated by itself, but it has to be direct.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start the question and answer period.
In this
and as
case,
always,
it's
I'll start
probably
off
due to
with Leo.
PTSD, due to MST, because it has its own separate process.
Morning. Thank you, Terrence. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, Deputy Secretary, for doing these press conferences. Hopefully, the next administration will
Turn this up.
take the example and continue these on because these have been incredibly helpful for us. Mr. Secretary, you talked a little bit about the transition. I wanted you just to go into a little more depth with that. What should veterans and employees expect? I know you said you've been talking about some of the preparations, some of the work that you've been doing.
It's a good question. What should veterans expect? Now, he said veterans and employees. It is a large entity, so that is important. Obviously, we care more about the veteran piece. So let's see what he has to say.
But I mean, I know there'll be some policy changes down the road from the next administration, but at least in the short term, should veterans and workers be expecting anything to be different?
Hold on.
Yeah, I think what the grand tradition of this country underscores is that, unique among democracies in the world, unique among governments in the world, the United States basically does a wholesale change in the management infrastructure of its federal agencies every 4 years. And the expectation that's built into that constitutional responsibility is that that's done seamlessly. And so when we talk about the workforce's expectations, and most importantly, when we talk about veterans' expectations, I think their expectation is that it be seamless. And we've taken that very seriously. That's why we did the preparation we did over the summer, and that's why we've conducted ourselves the way we have conducted ourselves since the transition officially began. So that's what their expectation should be. My guess is, Tanya and I had a great conversation with the agency review team yesterday. We made clear to them that, Tanya obviously knows a lot more about this agency than I do, and Tanya and the agency review team know a lot more about VA than I do. And so I think it's a very serious team that's coming in, and we're going to make sure that they have everything that they need to conduct, to continue to provide more care, more benefits to more vets than ever. In terms of changes or anything else.
Something I have pointed out is that phrase, more care, more benefits to veterans than ever. This team has said that at least 100 times, and it's just really kind of getting on my nerves at this point. Started with the PACT Act. We know community care is involved with that, but no one wants to talk about that one. But yikes.
The next team, that's for them to, shine the light on. The seamlessness, though, is ours to perform, and I'm very proud of the team and the way they've handled that to date.
when you're talking about issues like the electronic medical record restart and some of the, there was an initiative announced today about more PACT Act benefits and presumptives, does any of that get delayed or bumped back, or does that just remain on schedule as we do the handover in 2 weeks?
You know, seamlessness, I mean, means, as far as I'm concerned, that we continue to perform the duties that the president has been assigned by virtue of his constitutional role. So we're going to keep working right up till, you know, January 20th at 12:01. And so we're going to make sure that everything is in place for that to continue. What the next team does is up to them to decide and to announce. But seamlessness is on us. That means continue to work until 12:01. That's why we made the announcement. Well, that's why veterans can take a look at the Federal Register to make sure that they see what we intend to do on multiple myeloma.
Okay. I don't want that to go over everyone's head. He said veterans continue to check out the Federal Register. He's mentioning multiple myeloma. That just became a presumptive today, actually. I have a video coming about that, the VA's news release. But that also implies all the other changes through FedReg. VA Secretary is saying, hey, veterans, keep an eye on that. Don't let that go over your head.
On leukemia, on rare cancers. This is particularly important to the president in as much as veterans who served in K2 in Uzbekistan, which is a place that the president himself visited. I visited with him when he was a senator, that we get to the bottom of what happened there and the toxic soup that is there. And this is the first step in that, but it's going to require multiple steps. And we'll make sure that all those pieces are in place for the next team to continue.
Great, thank you.
Leo, let me just say one thing before we go to the next questioner, and I don't mean to make you stand up there, although my son who interviewed he just happened to find you for a class project, wanted me to shout out his man, Leo, today. So I'm shouting out Leo today from my son. But I want to underscore to veterans that we're obviously watching the natural disasters across the country, literally across the country, very, very closely. Got very cold temperatures in the south. Got a lot of snow here throughout the Midwest.
Snow and fire,
Central
man.
Atlantic. And then, of course, these tremendous fires in Los Angeles, which we're tracking very, very closely. We're reaching out to all impacted veterans in that area of the wildfires and making sure that they know that we're here for them. This morning, we'll be sending a message directly to California veterans and their families. The bottom line is this: if you want to know about how VA can help you through this storm, or you want to check on your local facility, please call 1-800-MyVA411 or visit us at va.gov/resources/disaster-help. That's 1-800-MyVA411 or va.gov/resources/disaster-help. Obviously, for any emergency, call 911. Our hearts go out to all those in the path of these fires, to all these natural disasters. We'll make sure that we are here for those veterans every step of the way. So thanks, Leo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leo. We'll go to Quill. Good morning, Quill.
Morning, everybody. Nice to see you all.
All right, Quill.
Thanks for doing this all this time. I'm hoping the next administration will enjoy coming out and getting slightly hectored and slapped around by the press corps. It's been great. Thank you.
Come on,
Can you tell me, in terms of, I mean, you've got a discussion of a budget shortfall, and then you've got an administration that's coming in saying that they're going to cut government spending drastically. Is there some practical advice that you've been giving them about what just can't be cut at VA, areas where they might focus if they are looking for cuts? And I guess, yeah, just some areas where that might look like a place you can cut, but trust me, I've been in government a long time, and that's not the hill you want to die on. Can you share any of that advice you've been giving the transition team?
Yeah, if we were to provide such advice, Quill, we'd provide that privately. But as it comes to,
Okay. I don't like that answer. I can tell you that. I don't like that answer. I don't like that answer. They're going to speak about transparency this whole conference, and then the first solid question that everyone's looking at, he says the word privately. Just saying.
recommendations on what to cut or where to cut, that's not something I'm going to be involved in. I think we've been very clear that, we've asked for significant increases in VA budget for the last 4 years. We've been very clear in how and where we spend that. When we've needed extra money, we've gone to the Hill to explain what it is we need it for and why it is that we need it. And inevitably, we only need the extra funding because this is a veteran-centered organization, meaning we're going to make every decision based on what the veterans need. In terms of what the next administration chooses to do, that'll be theirs. Those will be their decisions to address. I did notice that in the run up to the last CR expiration in 2020, there's a lot of discussion of potential mandatory cuts in and around debt ceiling debate. I think it would be a mistake myself if they were to cut VA benefits, which are mandatorily funded. We saw $187 billion in those benefits payments last year. Congress debated the PACT Act as the Total Cost of War Act. I think that's true, having watched now each of those 20 years of war from policymaking and staff positions over that time. We ought to make sure that we live up to our commitments to those veterans.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up, if you would. In terms of, VASP, is there, how much of that team that's administrating VASP is going to change? Is most of that is professional staff and not political?
Yeah, we're all professionals around here.
Clearly.
So the distinction we make is not between professionals and non-professionals, but rather professional career employees and professional political appointees. But, we have very, very few political appointees here in VA. Quill, I think we have, upwards of 35-ish in an organization with 451,000 employees. So it's a very small politically appointed staff. So, Josh is the principal, is obviously the undersecretary for benefits. Confirmed over.
I'm still trying to dissect how the VA secretary answered that. I'm not saying he's insinuating anything. What I'm trying to say is it seemed like he was implying that veteran benefits are being looked at to be cut whenever he said it's their decision, their choice, their leadership. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that one. I did not. A little unsettling, to be honest with you.
Overwhelmingly by the Senate. He will obviously leave on January 20th, but the rest of that team working on VASP and on housing, finance, and other priorities, that awesome team of professional career employees stays.
Okay. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Man.
Take care, y'all. Take care, Terrence, Tanya.
Thanks, Quill. Appreciate you. Patricia.
Thank you so much for doing this and having done this for the last 4 years. as everybody said, it's been very helpful. I would like to start with the issue of community care that has been discussed so extensively. I'll probably butcher your paraphrasing, but you.
I tell you what, of all the press conferences we've seen, we got 3 back-to-back banger questions. All right, these are banger questions. What happened the last 2-3 years? Where are all these questions at?
That in the last, Mr. Secretary, in the last press conference,
Yeah,
that
let's talk about
America has to decide, what the VA looks like, what it should look like. With all the discussion about community care and people, also veterans who value their own care at the VA, do you have any words for them who may be worried about the future of their own care if they get it at VA with all the discussion about community care?
I think it's a
He's
really
got to
good
navigate this
question,
one.
and I guess I just want to say to veterans that I think the way VA providers feel, I think the way VA professionals, professional career staff feel, and surely, people like Tanya and I feel, is that we feel honored to provide care to veterans. And I hope that they feel that. The most important thing is that veterans continue to tell us what their expectation is. And the easiest way to do that is the trust survey, which veterans respond, veterans get after every engagement.
The trust survey, that's his answer. Real quick, and I'm going to play. The whole purpose of community care is to provide timely health care to veterans. I don't care what the doctors feel like. If my appointments take 2-3 months, I have an appointment coming up in about 20 days. I'm waiting 2 months for. I don't care how my doctor feels when I get there. I care about how I feel. Community care, that's what community care is for. I don't. Clearly a answer that is aligned to party, not aligned to veteran.
In a VA health,
in my opinion,
setting, and to which veterans respond at a rate higher than any other healthcare system. So I'd urge veterans to continue to do that, to tell us where we do well, to tell us where we do badly, and then to tell us what their expectation is. Importantly, that survey experience is being expanded across VA, including to the benefits experience. So we urge veterans to do the same there. The most important thing, I think, about how this debate shapes up is what veterans want. And a ancillary part of the debate is how does VA manage its budget, which is typically very, very generous from Congress and very, very generous from the American people. Nevertheless, even as it is very generous, the demands for healthcare are very expensive, especially as our existing veteran patient base ages and reliance on the VA system increases. And as veterans, especially the Vietnam veteran era veterans and combat veterans, obviously, enter the most expensive stage of healthcare in their lives, we have to be certain that we are managing prudently those generous resources. And it's very hard for me to see how some of the characterizations of what we should do with VA becomes affordable if we're not being very aggressive about providing the veterans a VA access at every turn. So, one, this is a question of veterans' preference. Two, this is a question of prudently managing the taxpayer resources. And then 3, we have to make sure as an agency that we're doing everything that we can to meet those veteran expectations, which is why I'm really thrilled by Dr. Elna Hall, Dr. Lieberman, Dr. Braverman, Dr. Scavella, and their aggressive work with clinicians across.
Listen to what he's saying. He's saying it's a money problem because VBA, not that expensive relative to VHA. VHA is expensive. Employees, infrastructure, pensions, bonuses, medical supplies, right? Paying for community care. All of these are money he's using, affordable, managing taxpayer resources. Post the question about benefits being cut, right? Benefits, not disability. That's not what we're talking about here. It's healthcare. So yeah, I think it is a very big deal, and it's very telling that
VA.
It's an issue.
Their productivity.
Clearly,
to make sure that
spending money at the VA is an issue.
You know, you've heard me talk about this before. The radiologist whom I saw down in El Paso, having clinic at opening clinic for radiology appointments at 06 every morning. The providers that I've seen throughout VisionAID were having clinics on evenings and weekends. The increased reliance on things that we've talked about in this room, like forward deploying oncology care into rural Minnesota so that our vets up on the Northwestern Plains or up in the range don't have to drive 5 hours to get their chemo and then drive home 5 hours tired, fatigued by that treatment. All of those innovations, which are dependent on a robust VA system, are both veteran-centered and cost-effective. And, you know, I'm inspired by what I see from our providers in that regard. Hope that answers the question, Patricia.
It does. I just have one follow-up. So TriWest Healthcare Alliance manages the VA community care in the West, and they just added 4.5 million new beneficiaries from the Defense Department. There's transition issues going on over there with DOD, but are you seeing any impact on veterans' care in the community out in the Western region, or anticipate any issues with veterans getting appointments in the system with, you know, an expanded TriWest?
It's good heads up. I hadn't seen the news about this expansion of beneficiaries at TriWest in the West. You know, we get a really robust briefing every morning about flashpoints in the national system. I've not heard anything yet on this, but
I'll buy a new keyboard. Sorry, I'll make it silent.
Get to the bottom of it. We'll circle back with you on it. I will say this though about our third-party administrators: we pay them a king's ransom for the service that they provide. I think that our expectations have grown and will continue to grow, especially on 2 things. One, on helping us track down the documentation from community care visits. And then 2, and most importantly, on maintaining high quality networks of providers so that our veterans can get the best care in the world. I think you'll see that in iterations of, or I hope you'll see, you know, enhanced expectations for the third-party administrators in and around those 2 issues, which is performance on community care and maintenance of high-quality networks for our veterans in subsequent iterations of contracts.
Just my last one. I feel like
Come on.
Other colleagues that like to grab a lot of questions. The West LA campus.
So you're blaming everybody else for your 2 follow-ups?
Not me. The West LA campus is not very far from the Palisades fire. You touched a little bit on the helping veterans, but how is that campus preparing for any issues and you know, smoke, that kind of thing? What are you all doing?
Well, we're obviously the team's been working very aggressively in touch with local and state authorities as well as with national authorities to prepare our workforce. We're communicating clearly with the workforce. Communicating clearly is why we wanted to underscore today to you guys precisely what we're doing in Los Angeles, what we're seeing, and this is why we'll be emailing millions of veterans directly yet this morning. So we're making all the preparations one would expect. We're staying well integrated with state and local authorities as well as with national authorities. And we'll make sure that we're communicating with you guys as this unfolds during the course of today.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
I might
We'll go to
skip some
Dan.
boring
Good morning,
questions.
Dan.
We'll see.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Mr. Secretary, I also want to thank you for doing these press conferences and for staying there and answering all my questions and follow-up questions. Are you disappointed that the VA will not issue a final rule for constrictor bronchiolitis on your watch?
Well, I was just trying to figure out, was that like a kind of a slide?
I like the question, except for the constricted bronchiolitis is of all the changes. It's a VA SRD change, by the way. Tinnitus, mental health, sleep apnea, neurological. Of all the options, we choose constricted bronchiolitis.
Criticism of
Stupid.
Patricia's many follow-up questions or
No, it's
Oh,
absolutely a compliment.
so you commend her for her follow-up questions.
I do, and I commend you for
I think
taking
this
them
guy's
and
stupid.
encouraging them.
I see. Okay. Well, there you go. Dan, thanks very much. I guess I have this counsel here to our teammates in the press that, the questions that start with, are you nervous that, are you anxious that, are you disappointed if, those are all kind of unnecessary because I'm an anxious, nervous character who also oftentimes knows how. I guess I'd say this is what happens when you're one of 11 kids. I'm uniquely clued into my many, many, many weaknesses, and so any question that starts with, "Are you disappointed in, some lack of action from me?" The answer is yes. I routinely disappoint myself. On PACT Act execution more generally, I'm extraordinarily proud of this team that they've overcome my many weaknesses.
Dude. I'm going to skip.
I want to just call out Steve are very invasive and ultimately perhaps.
And they came up with recommendations, criteria for how to rate constrictor bronchiolitis that was completely ignored when the rule was come out. Why was their advice ignored?
Thanks for taking our questions both today and over the past couple of years.
Of all the changes, we talk about constricted bronchiolitis.
Really appreciate it. I wanted to circle back to the future of the VA's workforce and its ability to keep up with its mission. We've seen the VA workforce grow in recent years, commensurate with new work under the PACT Act, and also under the PACT Act, we've seen tools such as critical skills incentives, SSRs, special salary rates, things to incentivize people to come work for the VA and take on this mission. How confident are you in the ability for the VA's workforce to continue to match pace with its workload? Granted, of course, I know a lot of this rides on Congress's whether or not they.
I'm going to skip this question. It's VA
fulfill
employee
VA
related.
budget shortfall as it currently exists.
Yeah, look, I think it's a really good question. It's one that we spend a lot of time stressing out about.
I can tell you who's going to say VA is going to continue to provide more care to more veterans than ever before.
Thanks, Terrence. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning. Like other people said too, thanks. The monthly press conferences have been great. That's you don't know sometimes as a reporter if the questions you're answering are filtering up to decision makers. So here they obviously are, and that's been very cool.
Let's go, dude.
So of course I'm going to ask about VASP, but I'm hearing that there's a simple fix that could have a big impact and help a lot, like several thousand vets not lose their homes, even at this stage. And it's a little nerdy, but basically it's something that's called a 6-month seasoning requirement. And I think we haven't brought that up here in the press conferences before. But that just basically means you got to make 6 payments on a prior loan mod before you can be considered for VASP. But as we've been reporting, you know, the whole point is these vets got stranded and couldn't afford those loan mods that were available after VA turned off the PCP program. So there's a lot of vets who made a couple payments on a mod they couldn't afford that they got stuck in, and now they can't get VASP. And it just seems like I'm hearing that could be a powerful lever to pull. That'd also be pretty simple to just grandfather those folks in. You know, going forward, you could argue whether a seasoning requirement makes sense or not.
And to make sure it gets back to you.
Okay. And again, thanks for all these press conferences. It's really been great.
Thank you, man. I thought that was mean when you trolled Quill by asking if we could hear you.
That was hilarious.
Well, no, we do tend to screw up the audio. It's actually because we're always doing interviews on 3 different types of systems.
Come on.
Now that sounds like rationalization to me.
Come on.
Yeah, I love NPR.
Yeah.
Orion.
We're nonprofit.
Be cool.
Well,
Don't get
I'll just echo
frustrated.
what everybody else has said.
I'm on
Really
stream.
appreciate
Don't get frustrated.
you all doing these pressers every month or so, and grateful to Mr. Secretary, to Deputy Secretary Bradsher, everybody. Yeah, I know, and everybody who's made these happen. So thank you for that. Especially Mr. Secretary, knowing about your nerves, and I can relate. I get stage fright every time I come up here, just knowing I'm about to be on a YouTube live stream. So
And more than one
I'll
douchebag.
miss this,
Okay.
and hopefully we won't have to miss this.
Come on.
I want to ask just sort of a broad question. I'd appreciate hearing from you, Mr. Secretary, and from Deputy Secretary Bradsher, excuse me. What do you think is the single biggest challenge that your successors are going to face at VA?
Good question, finally. Sorry for calling this guy a douchebag. I apologize.
So I think the budget will probably be something, you know, within this year. Operating on a CR is definitely not ideal. So hopefully our staff will be able to have a full 25 budget and be able that planning process, as well as to make sure that the shortfalls that we're looking at are identified. I think that will be job one of the new administration.
Yeah, you know, it's just as a general matter, I just think that I just think if I can do this, anybody can do this, right? So do I think there's going to be big challenges? Yeah, but it's an amazing job. Get to work with these people who, you know, could really work anywhere.
Just answer the question.
I stood up here with Dr. Kelly. We did a presser. We had gone for a run that morning. The guy ran me into the ground. You know, it's like one of the world's leading oncologists, right? And he chooses to work for VA because he loves veterans. And we know veterans have a higher rate of lung cancer than any other cadre of Americans. So, yeah, it's a hard job, but it's an awesome job, and it's awesome because the people you get to work with, and they're here because the mission is so awesome.
The biggest challenge is that the VA is so great.
Discussing it with members of Congress and with our workforce.
Okay.
You know, we basically went into reset.
I want to hear what at least that lady gave an answer. That
veteran interest.
Tanya, you got a thumbs up in my book.
In a veteran-centered way.
She's coming up again, so I want to see what she
really
has to say.
Put their heart and soul in making sure that we're able to get the information that we need to work with Oracle to ensure that we have the healthcare record
Thank you so
our
much.
clinicians need in order to take care of our veterans.
Thank you.
Ultimately, going back to the why, DOD is done. They finished in March when we went to Lovell. And so with that, we have the ability now from MEPS all the way to when they get out or retirement to not have to carry those medical records and to be able to have them seamlessly integrated into our system ultimately once we're able to fully successfully deploy across the United States.
I'll have a coffee here once
and
the
so I
train's in.
think that vision is what propelled me to be so active in this, along with the fact that I'm also responsible for it. But I really would love
leaves you in terms of?
The VA is great, everybody.
I know you've touched on this. Well, first of all, I'll echo everyone else and thank you for doing this. And just note that since I cover a lot of federal government, this is highly unusual to have this sort of access. So we really do appreciate it. You've mentioned this a little bit in your previous answers, but just to drill down on it a little bit, can you just go over where things stand under the CR with VA budget and specifically where that leaves you in terms of hiring? And are you confident as you turn over the keys to the next administration that the workforce is where it needs to be?
Yeah. Since about
this has potential.
The middle of last year, we've been concerned about the rates of demand in the VHA system, which is why we prioritize starting last.
I have a stutter myself, and if you watch enough of my videos, you'll see it. But that was funny. Just looking at the thought process, that was a solid 10-second thought process there.
Prioritized access, and then many of our vision directors put on kind of the back burner new equipment purchases, for example, and they tried to or have, I think, effectively been more strategic about hiring.
Solid.
Which is to say, making very concerted decisions about when, where, and whom to hire.
I'm skipping this one.
And, we talked in this room about, I remember talking to Julie Flynn, who's CEO of our, one of our most active hospitals in San Antonio. And she just had.
Are you there, Ann?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm having some technology issues this morning, so I'm going to stay off camera. But I really do appreciate these monthly press conferences as well, which has been spoken, and thank you so much. So I'll just keep this very quick. I just have a follow-up question about community care. If it continues to expand at the rate it has over the last several years, I'm hoping, Secretary, that you can sort of walk me through the consequences of that and how veterans who do seek direct care in the VA, how they might be impacted. Thank you so much.
Great question.
Yeah. So, it's always, I think, treacherous to respond to a question that starts with if, because
you better answer this one carefully, big dog.
Let me just talk rather than about the hypothesis. Let me just talk about kind of how the system works, right? Because ultimately, how we fund the reimbursement to community providers comes from the same pot in the budget for how we fund, for example, the people we hire at VA. And one could see a period at which the demand for care in the community, for funding for appointments in the community, is so significant that that you have to pull back on the amount of the budget you're dedicating to hiring and maintaining VA providers. And so then the question is, if that is indeed a choice that we make as a country, that we would reduce the number of providers at VA, how would we do that? And what would be the rational basis for that? Would you just say that, VA is going to get out of certain specialties? Would you rather say that VA is going to maintain the specialties but get out of, primary care? Each of those would end up creating a different scenario for veterans. And each of those has significant costs. And so, when I said that.
I'll say this. It took us a whole hour to get an answer. I think that's a great answer. Okay. He's saying essentially no matter what we do, it's going to have a cause and effect, some second, third order effects. And this is probably the number one issue for the next administration. Finally, we get an answer. It's not a good answer. It's not an answer that we want, but it is an answer, and I can get down with that.
That we have to decide as a country, what we want the VA to look like. I think we should have a straightforward debate on that. The debate to date has been a suggestion that somehow we're limiting access to care. I think that's patently, fundamentally, overwhelmingly inaccurate. I'm very proud of the way we, as the country's leading healthcare provider, the way we've provided robust wraparound care, integrated care for our veterans. And community care has been a key part in how we do that. So the debate isn't a fair debate is not a question of whether VA is denying access to care. A fair debate is, what do we want that care to look like for veterans in an integrated healthcare system over time, and how do we finance that? And I think it's a difficult but and very important question to resolve. And we try to resolve it here all the time, and I know that the next team will as well.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
If we could have that, but for every question, I'll stop complaining. I will stop complaining. That was an answer. I think it was honest. It's not his problem anymore either. So,
are there any other questions from our press corps? Leo.
Let's see what we got. One more. Okay, this is the last question.
Secretary, we tried this last month. I'm going to try it again here to look back at some of what the last 4 years have been. When you came into office, you said you wanted VA to be more inclusive, to bring in more groups that had felt marginalized. We've seen over the years changing in the motto, although some of the work is still unfinished on that. We've seen outreach to LGBT veterans. Can you talk about not grading yourself, because I know that you're going to immediately avoid that, but talk about where VA is now 4 years later, and do you feel like it's in a fundamentally different place, not necessarily a totally fixed place?
I'm going to be honest with you here, and I don't know how this is going to be received. But I will say labeling LGBTQ veteran, combat veteran, all these other labels are completely irrelevant. A veteran's a veteran. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what your morals are. I don't care if you went to combat or not. A veteran's a veteran. And I would caution bringing identity politics, if you will, into the veteran space. 100%. I don't like the framing of that question
but in a different place than it was when you came into office.
And I have my own personal views.
Yeah, look, you keep trying to cut off the exits from the highway here.
It took me 4 years, but I think I got most of them off.
Yeah.
Or if you just want to talk about all the things you're worried about, that's
No, there's still one. Which is the most important way for us to judge how we're doing is what veterans think. Who gives a rat's ass what I think? Right? And when one measures what veterans...
If the VA wanted to know what veterans think, you know what they should do is invite some veterans to the press conference. I live less than 15 minutes away from DC. Let me ask the question. I would have loved to ask some questions from these OIG reports.
One need only look at the trust number, right? And we feel good about that. Do we feel great? No, but we feel really good about it because directionally it's in the right direction.
Don't worry, everyone. VA's trust number is
right? But we aspire to 100%.
92%.
just under
What was
93%
it?
satisfaction.
Yeah, under 93,
Right? So I think that's really
92%,
important.
92.8. I
The
think.
other is then how are we doing on other indicators? One that is heartbreaking is the suicide number, right? And I am not satisfied with that.
On veteran suicide of note, the VA kind of got handed this problem. The DoD, all the blame is put on the VA, not the DoD. Same thing with PACT Act, right? Why were we exposed in the first place? Can we limit exposure? What does that look like? So that's a very short answer because I'm trying to dip out here, but it's not the VA. The VA is the one to take blame and deal with it, and it's a issue that is unsolvable. So it sucks.
There's important indicators of success. There's important indicators that the interventions we're undertaking are working, but still losing too many veterans to suicide. So
it is down.
What I think
yes.
is that we still have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do on access. We have a lot of work to do on trust, and ultimately
access, trust. I would say outreach
as I've said in this room before. We'll know that we're really performing at the level that we know we can and the level that we know we need to when we're at 100% veteran satisfaction and when suicides are 0, and when vets are telling each other to come get their care at VA. Now, we have glimmers of that, right? I'll give you 2 data points. One I just learned today and one I learned earlier this week.
I did that, Jeff.
The first is that as of this morning, we've provided
I swear on my life I did that.
Just over 6 million toxic exposure screenings, right? That tells me that in our system, our providers are aware of what this tool is, our veterans are aware of what this tool is, and overwhelmingly they're getting access to that tool. That's positive. Second thing is, we told you last month that we've begun an effort to reach out to certain veterans, including veterans of the Syria conflict, who had been exposed to repeated concussive blast, and who are not yet enrolled in VA care. We've reached out to about 1 million of them. There's 2 important, or 3 maybe important data points. One is ultimately that enrollments this year, December 2024, relative to December 2023 and December 2022 are about 10% up. Now that's interesting, I think, because it's December to December, it's year to year, it's 3 years post-PACT, and it's 3 years in the context of historically large outreach. So we've had, 10% increase in enrollments. Hopefully that's an indication that this outreach is working. Secondly, open rates on the emails that we've been sending out to veterans are at north of 50%. It's a very high open rate. That may be, and this is the third point, because veterans are forwarding those emails on to other veterans. My hope is not fact or even an analysis. This is hopeful.
You want to see an issue here? I'll show you an issue.
That is an indication
this
that
is
veterans
the
are reaching out
VA's
to their battle
YouTube
buddies
channel,
to say,
470,000 subscribers.
When we reach that point,
78 people watching.
So, okay.
We have
Thank you,
Yes.
221.
I just can't leave without talking
Meaning
about
the VA just sucks that outreach.
So when we arrived, we had about 569,000 women enrolled.
The Federal
in healthcare.
News Network.
We're now up to 729,000.
No one
Last
cares
year
about
alone,
that.
we enrolled 53,000 women veterans. And so to see that uptick is just amazing. And just
No one
also
cares
want to
about
encourage all
whatever
of our
news
women veterans
agency,
and all veterans to reach out to VA.
these
But it
people
has
come
really been
from.
wonderful to
They're
see
not
the
talking to
constant
veterans.
outreach
That's
that
the
we've been
issue.
doing to our women veterans, and that they're actually deciding to enroll in our healthcare. And so it's been a phenomenal opportunity to watch that growth throughout time.
Great. Thank you both.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Well, Madam Deputy Secretary.
And
Mr.
that
Secretary, this concludes our
LGBT question
press
he asked
conference.
made the chat livid.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for coming, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Thanks, press.
All right. January 20th, 12:01 p.m.
Thanks, guys.
That admin is out. Peace. There's more to come. I'm going to be making some videos on this because I do have some thoughts, especially on the budget questions. What I want to do is splice the budget questions together and get a full answer. And then we did have one good budget question answer. That was a good answer. I want to go through that again, and yeah, we'll see what the next admin has to do about that. But we do know that the budget is an issue. It's been confirmed many times. Tanya gave a straight up answer. The budget is an issue. Yeah. Brian Koopman, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Be sure to download Discord, link your account, do all that stuff. I have a one-on-one to get to in 4 minutes. That's why I was skipping. I'm starting to do one-on-ones. I'm rolling them out. If you want one-on-ones, join the Discord. All the information is there. Yeah, man, I'm trying to get my thoughts on this press conference. I do think it was the best one we've had. That what sucks is too little, too late. The dumbest question was a constrictive bronchitis of all bronchiolitis of all the VA SRD changes. That's the one this dude asked about, not tinnitus, which is absolutely major. It's the number 1, number 2 claim for all generations, not mental health, not the sleep apnea changes. Nope, we want to talk about constrictive bronchiolitis. Just what a dummy, dude. Dummy in his dumb cow background and his dumb. Just go bald already, dude. Wear a hat like me, go bald, whatever. I don't like that guy now. He's on my poop list. Anyways, that's all I got. It's funny that we got more views than the Department of Veteran Affairs did. I think that's hilarious to me. And that's all I got. So take care. Watch my videos, please. Especially today's video. It's not doing well. Watch it for me. I'd appreciate it. Jason's channel's back up. Veterans Info Tap. All righty.